processes going forward with regards to the SGB elections that are taking place. So welcome to the session. I just want to see there's a few notes that have popped in there. Let me just go through to get us started. So we're going to be speaking directly, as I said, to the principals to help you in this process going forward and give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have with regards to this process. We are going to struggle a little bit to do it, folks, but there is guidance, there's people on board that can help you with the process. Talking of that, there's a list of our provincial managers throughout the country. Please get hold of them, ask them any of the information that you require. They will be able to provide it with you, and they are then backed up by our legal team that can also help and support as we go further onto that process. I do know, and I have to say it very carefully, there is probably a fair amount of frustration and anguish and disbelief with the calendar that has been amended and come out. It's one of those things we're going to learn to live with, folks, and I think we've got to find a way. We are not exactly ecstatic about the changes that we've seen there, but we need to manage through the process to deliver education. That's really what it's about. So we are obviously going to be communicating in details going forward with regards to that specific process. But today we are talking about the election process, and in particular, the principals' involvement to get the election process running and the questions that you may have. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. I see at the moment I have got the hands up functionality operating, but I'm going to stop that just now. It's just very difficult getting everybody on board into that process. So if you wouldn't mind just typing in any questions that you have got, maybe at this point, just let us know where you are and how things are going. Have you started education yet? Have you been online? Have you distributed documents or books to your learners? Or are you still waiting for the 15th? We won't condemn anybody that is. But yeah, we are encouraging people to come online as soon as possible and to start education processes. With that, I'm going to hand straight over to Jaco Deacon, our Deputy CEO, who's going to be basically handling the session today. We've got a few of our provincial managers on board to help answer the questions as well. And we've also got one of our provincial managers from the Western Cape, Tony Marshall, on board as well. So good morning, Jaco. How are you this morning?
Morning, Paul. No, fantastic. I'm excited about this session, the whole election process, and hopefully we'll be able to give some guidance to the school principal on how to induct a new SGB at the school. And I'm going to ask Tony Marshall to also open his video feed. Before I start with the technical side of it, I've asked Tony to join me in this discussion. I think I'm not a school principal and will never ever be a school principal. And luckily, Tony is now a retired school principal with vast experience of starting with new SGBs. Tony, I think it must be a daunting prospect for some school principals to again start with a new SGB. Maybe you don't know what to expect on the other side. I'm sure at some stage you had a wish list. I wish they'd known this before they started to become SGB members, when they start to function. Just talk me through those emotions and what are typical things that frustrated you in that process?
Jaco, there are two aspects to this. Probably the first is that you have a certain amount of gratitude that you've come through a process with a previous governing body and the achievements that were made with that previous governing body. And of course, there's always an anxiety with something new. You want to know, first of all, do the people who are going to be elected to the governing body understand that this is a 3-year term and that they have to be available? And that availability might be inconvenient to them, but it's certainly critical to their role in the school. So availability is critical. Along with that goes the rather awkward thing to mention, but the importance of relationships. You know, if it's going to be a 3-year term, then having good relationships and having ways of managing the governing body, those are critical. Good relationships are absolutely critical. And then lastly, I think, you know, we all start something with hopes of making a massive difference in the world, and that is right and fitting. But we also have to understand that very often business people and people who are out in the private sector don't understand the complexity of the principal's job. the 360-degree pressure on the principal, from the youngsters, from the staff, from the education department, from the parents. And of course, the governing body is beautifully positioned to help with that. So those are the three things, Jaco.
Your single biggest frustration with governing bodies? Over the years?
It's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you want enthusiasm, you want commitment, and you want people involved. But they also mustn't become a conduit for the pavement committees that all schools have. You know, the pavement committee that stands outside there, you know, and says, you know, my Johnny said that Mr. So-and-so said, and so on. So you have a whole string of unfortunate hearsay situations. And then they target someone on the governing body and they say, you better see to this. so that's it, the pavement committees. It relates to the relationships that I spoke about, and it relates, of course, to the complexity. So trust is such a critical thing. The element of trust, the transparency. So frustration would be, in essence, then the pavement committee that speak from a specific point of view, thinking that, you know, if only this principal had a wand like I do, we could change the world. And of course, you want that enthusiasm, but you also want an understanding.
Indeed, that pavement committee, the Afrikaans, I sometimes refer to the boomkomitee because they meet together under the trees. Or
in English, with respect, Jaco, in English we understand boom to be something entirely different, and it's a problem at the school in a different manner.
Let's stick to the pavement then. Tony, how important is it for the SGB members to understand the operational working of the school? Will that help or hinder this relationship on the SGB?
I think it's vital, Jaco, absolutely vital. You know, because if we understand, for instance, the SIP, the School Improvement Plan, if we understand the APIP, the Academic Performance Improvement Plan, that governing bodies have to sign off on, if we understand the vision for the school, the mission for the school, and the budget that enables all of that, then it's critical that the parents understand, the governing body as a whole understand. And that is then very important that they participate with enthusiasm and commitment in the governance element, not the management, but the governance element, that they have oversight, that they create the policies that improve the school.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Tanya. I think it's so crucial to understand the dilemma of the school principal, the excitement, the anxiety, but there's a lot of things that we can actually do before the election to work on this relationship. The school principal is the only member that will serve through a number of terms of SGBs. So the continuity is crucial. And there's an additional duty and obligation on you as the leader in the school to guide your new SGB, your new chairperson on this journey, and also to set the example on how things can be. If we, maybe just before I get to that, the third slide, let me just go one back. There's a one-stop service on the FEDSAS webpage, fedsas.org.za. If you click on the homepage, there's your link to all the resources to the SGB election. Now, we spoke about the resource package that's available last week, but you'll also get the document that we're going to talk about today. The proposed agenda for that evening will also be on the site with a few ideas that will assist you as school principal to do that first school induction session. If you go into the site now, there's also the link to the FEDSAS product. There's a special offer now that's available for the next few weeks, and purchase the documentation now. Order the books that it's available, that you can hand them out during that school induction session. So that's on the FEDSAS website. Go to our site, click on those links, and use all the documentation. Now, interest in our training that we're going to do it on a digital platform is that it will consist out of 3 parts. Part 1 will be for the full SGB at the same venue at the school, and as a principal, you need to take the lead. You need to book those dates, you need to organize the SGB to attend the first session, the A part of part 1, which is the FEDSAS governance induction. It will be more or less an hour. So organize the venue, make sure everybody is there, comply with the COVID protocols, and we will give the basic induction on good governance. But the very next evening, and we want those 2 evenings to be the one and the next evening, to keep those 2 as close as possible. The second evening will be the school management induction session, and that's a new item to our induction program. We're not going to lead the program. You are going to lead that specific program, because we don't know the specific dynamics of your school, your style of leadership, the context in which the governing body will operate at your school. And it's vital that you providing with that information at the very beginning of this new journey and relationship you're going to embark upon. I'm going to touch on part 2 and part 3 a bit later in the presentation, but the school induction is part and parcel of part 1. We'll do the first evening, and you are going to do the second evening. Now, those are the dates. Obviously, you've seen the new school calendar, and that's a new twist. But from the onset, we've been promulgating and asking our members to go through the election during March. The Schools Act is clear that the term of an SGB cannot exceed 3 years. So you don't want to be without a school governing body. So conduct your SGB election during March. And I know there will be some comments coming from the Western Cape to say, well, the Western Cape, a certain district director instructed us that we can only start on the 20th of March. It's not true. The circuit manager cannot overrule the minister, and the item published in the government gazette. So the election can take place from the 1st of March. And those are the 3 dates that we're going to use for the start of our induction. If we decide on another date, you'll be informed. So if your election is before the 15th, then we'll advise that the whole SGB attend the first session on the 15th, and that the school evening is then on the 16th. Or if you're going to have your election on the 20th, then attend the 23rd, the FEDSAS one, and then the 24th will be at your school. The bottom line is the moment they're elected, they're responsible. So let's start with the training process as soon as possible, and give those new members a proper induction. Now let's get into that B part, that evening where you're going to take the lead and the responsibility. Who will be the presenter or the host of the school management induction? It will be you, principal. It's your privilege. Obviously, you're going to use your school management team and maybe a few learners from the Representative Council of Learners to assist you in the process. But why? Why is it so important? And I think Tony already touched on the crucial aspects. We want the new SGB members to understand not only the governance. You may have wonderful people elected from different professions. They have got all the skills and expertise in their field, but they don't know how to operate, and they don't know the operational working of the school. So you need to contextualize, because those professional people will function in the education sector at your school. And that's the big why. Open the door for the new governors to understand your will, to understand your school, to understand the uniqueness of what they're going to deal with. Like they say in the movies, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let them understand from the very beginning what's happening at your school, but I'll touch on that a bit later. I think it's good practice that you announce the dates for the training even before the election. Tell all the candidates. Those are the dates. We're going to attend the FEDSAS training session on that day. The very next evening is the school training session, and there's the whole program for the SGB meetings until the end of the year. So that they know to keep those dates open from day one. You cannot be elected and not attend the training sessions, then you are useless to our school, even if you're a professional. We need you to be part of the training. And then I would like to encourage you to consider and talk to your current SGB chairperson, to consider a meeting with all the potential candidates a week or two before the election. If they consider to make themselves available to be a candidate in the election, call a meeting. Now, I'm still an SGB chairperson. I'm going to move out within the next few weeks. And we've done that at our school for the last 2 terms, where the outgoing SGB chairperson takes the responsibility with the school principal and call a meeting of all the proposed candidates or people who consider to make themselves available. And within that hour, we give them a short overview of what is governance all about, what's the expectation from the school side. And like Tony emphasized, it's a 3-year term. When you commit for the next 3 years. That's the frequency of our meetings. That's the expectation from our school community. And then from day one, we're going to talk about the best interest of the school. So if you plan to be a candidate and drive a specific agenda, please don't stand as a candidate, because that's the obligation in terms of the Schools Act. This is also the place, and we got the question in our Afrikaans session earlier, can people with outstanding school fees, can they be candidates in the election? And the answer is technically yes. They're not prohibited. But it's difficult when you start to sue governing body members for non-payment and non-compliance. So in that meeting, that's the place where you should have the discussion. We ask people, if you want to be a candidate in this election, we need to set the example. We need to advise those people that as leaders, you cannot owe school fees. You must lead by example. So rather pay your school fees or serve on a committee or something else, but that's the time and the place for the open, frank discussion. Obviously, they can still stand as a candidate, but I think it's important to have the discussion before the election than to sue a member of the SGB a bit later. Now, what should you do and where should you start? Again, there's a document. If you go into the site, you'll get the link and it will be there and you can use it. But I propose that you start with a school tour. Take the newly elected members and start early enough that you still have a few minutes of sunshine in your area and take them through your school. Most of the governors would only know a few places at the school. I've served for 7 years on the SGB. When I first saw the server room, and we spent a lot of money on that room, I didn't even know where it was. So even as a seasoned governor on that school tour, I saw something new. And also remember, we as parents experience and see the school 90% through the eyes of our learners, of our children. So it's important to get the opportunity to walk through the school. Principal, show them the nice places, show them the trophy and the new development at your school, but also show them where you are lacking. So we need to address this. This is an area of concern. We're proud of this area, but we're not so proud of that area. Give them an orientation that when you start to meet and you talk about classroom A or the computer lab, that your governors will have a picture in their mind, what are we dealing with? Then you can move to your boardroom or your staff room or wherever you're going to meet and have your normal opening as you would normally do. Principal, so you can decide who will take lead on the opening. But the first person who's going to address the SGB, the newly elected people, should be you as the leader of the school. And your presentation should be about the school. Maybe it's important to give an historic overview of the school, to contextualize again, what are you currently doing? Maybe you need to talk about the number of learners that you've gained or lost. You're going to touch the values of the school. You're going to talk about the mission statement and the vision of the school. And maybe your specific objectives or goals at the school. You are going to share your dream as the leader in the school. What do you want to achieve before you leave or retire? And that's also the opportunity where you can challenge the new governors to say, but we need you to do 1, 2, or 3. So don't be afraid to use the opportunity to put your leadership vision out there and encourage them to be part of it. Emphasize the core values at your school. Then I think it's crucial that you explain your management structures and management style to the rest of the SGB. Who's going to do what at your school? What processes are you going to follow if there's a complaint or a communication issue, to prevent those pavement committees from being the communication channel? How do we communicate? If you're confronted at the braai by an angry parent, should you deal with the issue, or to whom should you refer that person? Deal with that in that very first induction of the SGB members. That's our structure, that's our process. And then your staff as well, especially if you've got young governors serving and don't know all the staff members, just give them a brief exposition of who's who at your school, who's doing what. We would normally know the older teachers, the legends at the school, but also who are the younger ones, who's doing what at the school. And that's also important. I may just know the teacher as the math teacher of my learners, but I wasn't aware of the fact that he's also responsible for a computer lab or for the tuck shop or whatever. So it's crucial. Then the new governors can only function within the budget framework that a previous SGB approved. So on finances, maybe it's advisable to ask your bursar or somebody responsible in that section to give a brief overview. Now, time-wise, give yourself 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. And for the next sections, you can allocate shorter time. Finances will also take 10 to 15 minutes, and the rest of the sections maybe 5 to 10. But on finances, it's crucial for the governors to understand the financial process at the school. Because the very first thing they're going to do in the new term is they'll start with the budget process, providing with a copy of the budget, because they're going to function within the budget. If there are big projects and so forth, highlight that in that very first session. And then you're going to give the different divisions or sections in your school an opportunity to market themselves and introduce themselves to the governors. On the academic side, who's the academic leader in the school? Do you work with grade heads or departmental heads? What's the structure at your school? Explain that to them. Maybe your sport organizer and cultural head can address. And in the document that's on the website, you'll see we are hinting that you can utilize your learners to maybe give an introduction to the cultural and sporting activities, and just the adult to deal with the budget side, but involve the learners and those who are going to serve on our SGB. Maybe it's a good time to utilize them as well. If you have a hostel, crucial to explain the hostel and hostel process to them, and obviously the whole administration part. If you run businesses like a tuck shop or a clothing shop or aftercare service, again, that should be part of the basic induction. If the governors want more information, then you can have a separate meeting, but this is a mere overview within an hour to an hour and a half to open the door for the governors to understand what's happening at the school and what processes are you following. Again, school principal, don't take the hour and a half to do the presentations yourself. It's a good opportunity for the SGB to meet your management team, the SMT. Give them responsibilities, give them time frames, let them do the presentations. It will do wonders not only for them, but you've got immediate interaction between your management team and your SGB members. And again, some insight in the life of the teachers. I think it's crucial that very first evening to have some kind of a social event or something to eat and to drink, to create a relaxed atmosphere for the interaction between the newly elected governing body members and your management team. It's vital at this stage to provide them with the tools to continue their tasks. So the FEDSAS material, that will be the booklets. So please order those books, the pocket statutes. I'm going to talk about a website right now, but also the school-specific documentation, the material that you want the SGB to have So any management documents you would like them to read through or understand, but then also access to all the policy documents and important dates. Maybe just give them a school diary as well, to tell them, listen, we expect the SGB to be present at the following events. If they don't know, maybe they're not going to pitch. What's your expectation? The policy, some schools prefer to give big files, others give flash drives or data sticks, and some schools utilize shared drives and cloud services. Whichever you use, just give the governors access. Remember the previous evening, they were told in the induction session by FEDSAS and governance, you're responsible for policies and so forth. Now you need to give them the school's documentation that they can start to read. I spoke about a FEDSAS product. We're going to challenge them in our session to read and to work through that manual and to start to visit the website, to familiarize themselves and to understand what they're going to do. So the FEDSAS training, and we'll get back to the training right now, but there's also a new twist in our website. We're going to launch a new site on the 1st of March. And to be in compliance with all the personal information, we're no longer going to have a single login for the school. So every member of the SGB must create a username and a password on the website so that they can access the information. There'll be a moderator at the school, so we'll know who will be the SGB members that can have access, but it's crucial that they start to explore and understand their role and responsibilities. The good news for the secretary is nobody's going to call you in the evening to ask you about the username and the password. It's now the individual's responsibility. So encourage them to visit the site. If you serve on a financial committee, encourage them to read the financial section. And by now, most of you should know the sections, what's available. So please utilize that. Then I think the best time to sign a code of conduct is at the end of that session. Now we understand the governance part as explained by FEDSAS. We understand the management side as explained by our school principal. And we've gelled the two, the coin, governance and management, two sides of the same coin. And now that's the framework in which we're going to operate. But let's sign the code of conduct where we're going to agree. This is how we're going to work. It's better to do this before your first SGB meeting. Maybe 2 or 3 or 4 months later, it's time to remind everybody, you must apologize if you're not going to attend the meeting. You've committed to serve on a committee. So that's the crucial document. I know some schools have separate documents that the SGB members sign. It's okay. So just make something of it. That's our commitment as SGB members, to be involved and to be there. Just back to my social event. I think it's vital that you do spend some time socializing. At the very first meeting, you're going to elect a chairperson, maybe a deputy chairperson, your secretary and your treasurer. And if they don't know one another, it will be difficult to vote for somebody. So use this as an opportunity for the new people to get to know the rest of the members on the team before we go into that very first formal meeting. A few tips from my side. First impressions last. So the way in which you're going to welcome the governors will set the tone for the rest of the year. Your excitement and how you do things will set the tone for the rest of the 3 years. On the positive side, but also on the negative side. So your first impression is crucial. So if there's something special you can do, maybe some of the school branding on a pen or on a key ring or something special to say thank you and congratulations and thank you. Do something special. Don't miss the opportunity to share your dream. Why are you still passionate about the school? Why are you still the school principal at the school? Share your passion with them. Open your heart, open your office door to the governors. And if you do that, you're also going to challenge them. If we want to be the best, it means we need to do 1, 2, or 3. Involve your team, your SMT, your team at the school. it's a us thing, it's not a you thing. And then the word breaking bread, just to sit down and to share a meal without the agenda, without the PowerPoint, without the computer, just to be human, just to connect on a very personal level. Your biggest challenge, school principal, will be in the next few months to forge a strong relationship with your SGB chairperson, but also with the rest of the SGB. So take time to break bread. Even in a digital space, make time that you build your team. And then lastly, as a leader in the school, by now, you would have been part of numerous SGB training sessions, either by FEDSAS, maybe of the union or of the department. And maybe you're tired of all these training sessions because you know what's governance all about. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. The bottom line is the new governors will look towards you for guidance. So you must go through the whole process. You must lead the training sessions. You must be first to register. You must be first to encourage them to say, listen here, let's attend this as a group and let's talk about this afterwards. Make it live, make it alive. You're a teacher at heart, so use that to encourage them. Now, again, there's a huge change in how we've done the training than in previous years. Now, I'm back to that training slide. So if you pay your membership fees, and I think the invoices are going out as we speak. So when your membership is already paid, you'll get 10 group vouchers. So you'll be able to attend the first induction. Part 1 is an open session. Part 2, you're going to use your vouchers. There are 5 sessions. And we want the whole SGB to attend all 5. Now, in part 1, we'd like to encourage you as school principal to arrange the first evening, same venue, go through the training with your team the next evening at the school. Part 2, if you see there's a need, then maybe you can again utilize the same venue, or the governors can access it from home. So there's no need for them to be present at the same venue for part 2, but it's crucial that the full SGB attend those 5 topics. The functions of the SGB, the pitfalls and potholes, financial management, HR management, and then the use of committees. And then you can use the vouchers for that, 5 of the vouchers, and then you'll have 5 more vouchers for part 3, where you can pick and choose which sessions you would like to attend, or maybe invite committee members or invite staff members. And I'll get to the staff right now. And you can use 5 vouchers for that as well. The rest will be paid webinars. So there will be 15 sessions, and that will run up till the end of November. Obviously, with the new school calendar, we're going to amend on our side, but the dates will be available as soon as possible. Now, these sessions aren't limited to the SGB members only, specifically part 2 and part 3. The operational side is normally done at school level. So let's say the webinar is all about the budget process, then it's crucial, obviously, for SGB members and everybody serving on a financial committee to be there. But on your staff side, all your staff members who are working in the financial section, even if they're not members of the SGB and not on a committee, it's vital that they also attend that training session because it's their workspace. They will operationalize all the plans, and it will really make your life easier. So all these sessions are not limited only to the governors, but it will really help your operational people to execute their tasks. Then, your outgoing SGB, I think you should do something special for them as well. They've served for 3 years, and on the FEDSAS website, again, if you go to the resources, there's a link where you can download the certificate of appreciation. There's also a link to a how-to. So you're going to include the school badge, the name and surname of the governor, and the name of the school, just to show your appreciation. Maybe take a few photos and share that with your school community before you introduce the new governors. So it's available free of charge. Just download it and give it to your new governors, or the old governors, sorry, as your token of appreciation for the work that they've done for the past 3 years. Moving on, the last part of the training session, the A part of part 1, the governance induction. Paul called it us speaking about the virtuous cycle of trust, respect, and openness. And the last part of the FEDSAS training is actually the introduction to your management session. We think it's crucial to make that connection very early. Who's going to take care of the governance side and who's going to take care of the management side? And we're again going to refer to that coin. That governance and management are two sides of the very same coin. You cannot grind one off and you still have another. It's useless. It's a useless coin. But in that process, and that's my challenge to you, school principal, you will get the very first opportunity to put this cycle into motion. How are you going to show your trust in the very first session? The way in which you're going to address them, which you're going to open your school, the respect part, and then the openness. You're going to lead by example. And get back to this. Maybe this is a document that you need to print out or put it up in your boardroom, that when you start with the difficult discussions, or even before you start with it, just to remind everybody, as governors, we're working in this cycle of trust, respect, and openness. So let's keep that in mind if we start with our deliberations and discussion. So somewhere in your presentation, maybe you should just get back to this. And then we link the A and the B part of the session, the governance and the management part. It's your privilege to do the school induction. You'll be an ordinary member of the SGB, but you're the CEO of the school. Lead. Open your door. It shouldn't be a lonely chair and a lonely office. The moment you start to really trust, respect, and have the openness, you'll get a different SGB. Have the difficult discussions and the issues to your very first session. If you are concerned about things, put it on the table. Take these people into your trust, that you can really, when you start with the difficult discussions, the difficult deliberations, that should be your guide in the process. Now I'm going to stop my screen, and we've received a number of questions. Paul, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to come in with the screen, or maybe just before you come in Afrikaans session, we had a number of questions about the electronic election process. And last week we said there will be a webinar on the electronic election process. Rian, and in the Afrikaans session, I gave the wrong date. It's not tomorrow, it's on Thursday afternoon. You're going to talk about the whole e-election, the do's and the don'ts. Maybe just give us a brief introduction, and I think you're going to share that link as well.
Yes, Jaco, good morning, everybody, and thank you for visiting us today. I think we had a lot of questions by emails for the past few weeks already, and in the Afrikaans session as well. Just a reminder that we're talking about e-elections, the process. There's a guideline from the Department of Basic Education, and we're going to be talking. So please just have a look out for this advertisement or post on Facebook if you want to follow the link. I'll share the link in the post as well, and it was circulated last week in a newsletter. We're going to be talking process. The DBE put out a tender process for service providers to accredit themselves and be registered as a service provider. We're not sure exactly when that process closes. Well, it closes on 19th February for submission, but not when the accreditation is to be finalized. So we're going to start looking at the guidelines related to elections of school governing bodies. And then we're going to have one service provider in the market already, Voting Crowd, just showcase their solution for us. And we're going to walk through the principles of what to deal with as far as taking care of security, proper voting procedure. I had a question earlier from someone that asked, can we use WhatsApp? And I think we'll address that in that session. I don't think it's a strong enough secure platform to do that. So look out for that. I'll share the link quickly in the chat box, but join us on Thursday afternoon, Tech Talk at 3 online for the session about electronic elections. Thanks, Jaco.
Oh, thank you, Rian. I think that's a crucial session. Remember, we've got 3 models, and the old one, the normal meeting stuff, but with COVID, I think it's a dangerous option to use. So utilize the full day or then the electronic one or the combination, but it will be discussed. So don't miss out on one of those sessions. Jorne, can I ask you to open your camera and mic? Jorne is serving on that task team on the regulations. In our Afrikaans session, we also had a few questions on who's a parent or the legal guardian who can serve. So Jorne, can you just touch on that, please? Who's a parent? Let's start there.
Yes, surely, Jaco. Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to join in this time in the morning. First off, I think I'd just like to refer everyone to our FEDSAS website. You'll see that there's a legal opinion. The exact name is the definition of parent in terms of the South African Schools Act. So please make sure to visit our FEDSAS website, where you can find a whole legal opinion on exactly who is considered a parent in terms of the South African Schools Act. But just to give you a quick overview of who is regarded a parent, I'd like to point out that the Schools Act states that we have 3 different categories of parents. Now, the first one is quite easy. That's your biological or adoptive parent. For that, you'll have a birth certificate, or there will be a court order stating that you are a parent. Your second category is a person who is legally entitled to the custody over that specific child. To give you an example, a child who's currently living in a children's home. There would also be some sort of documentary evidence which the specific person can hand into the school to prove that he or she is entitled to custody over that specific child. And then finally, the third category, and I think that's the one that the most challenges, or the schools are faced the most challenges with, and that's the person who undertakes to fulfill the obligation of a parent as referred to now in category A or B. Now, that's usually where you'd get your grandparent who is looking after a child who now wants to serve on your SGB. Now, very importantly, if we look at this third category, there's 2 very important aspects that you do have to consider. First of all, is there an undertaking from a parent or from that specific person? We'd usually recommend you to insist on a written undertaking from that person to state that they will serve or they undertake to fulfill the obligations of a parent. And then secondly, have a look at whether that person is really serving the parental obligations or really fulfilling the parental obligations towards that child. For instance, is the child living with that person? Is that person the one who drives the child to and from school every day? Is that the person who's paying the school fee? So in a nutshell, that's your 3 categories. But for more details, please visit our FEDSAS website, where you can find detail on who's considered a parent.
Thank you, Jorne. Then a very good question about the number of vacancies and the number of nominations. Obviously, you're in trouble if you, let's say, in this instance, you've got 5 vacancies for parents. You'll be in trouble if you only get 4 nominations. But if you have 5 nominations and no other, they'll be duly elected. But again, refer back to your provincial regulations. Go to the FEDSAS website. Not all the provinces have published. But if it's only 5 and only 5 vacancies, then they're duly elected in that process. If you have more, obviously, then you're going to have an election. Okay, Paul, next one. Grandparents. They're so involved in the education of our learners. So again, if they don't fall in the definition of a parent, then they cannot be a member of the SGB. But if they really want to serve and they have the skills and the time, you can always utilize their skills in a school committee. So whether it's finances, marketing, whatever, so there's no prohibition to co-opt, get them to serve as experts in that sense. I get the idea that there's a generation of grandparents who are really willing and able to help and assist schools, whilst parents are very busy. So don't underestimate the value of the opas and omas at the school. I mean, I'm also a parent here at the primary school. I see the opas and omas next to the sport field, collecting the kids, attending all the sessions. So the grandparents can fill a fantastic role.
Jaco, if I can
Paul,
just,
I think
Jaco,
we've
if I
answered
can,
all the questions.
yeah, if I can just come in quickly there, just on a bit of an outside, is that we're gradually being known as the sandwich generation, where you've got more than 2 generations that are living in a house. You've got grandparents and sometimes great-grandparents that are all cohabitating. And I think that's something that is definitely coming through, and we're seeing the impact on our schools as well. I just wanted to put up that comment there. If there are any other questions, folks, please type them in, and I'm sure our panelists can get hold of them. But just that comment that came from our previous Afrikaans session, and vir julle mense wat nie so lekker Afrikaans verstaan nie, I'll translate it. It was really a good session. Chairperson said that if principals handled this work in advance, it would make their 3 years much better. Sort of apropos quoting it. So I think it is something important to look at the planning session, and this, what Jaco has outlined, I think is vital for the new governing body members. I'm just having a look to see if there are any questions, Jaco. There is one there. How do principals and SGBs in multiracial schools neutralize institutionalized systematic racism and other forms of unfair discrimination?
Mr. Masimango, that's a very good question. I think when you start with the whole election process, it's crucial to identify people from the diverse community. I mean, the whole SGB cannot consist out of males or only out of females. And if you're a multicultural school, you would like to see some form of a reflection of that in the SGB as well. Now, let's say after the election, you see, well, we only consist out of males, then you can co-opt for expertise. Then it's crucial to go and sit down to say, what do we want in our school? What's the kind of message we're going to send out? So likewise on race, on maybe religion in certain areas, but then you can co-opt. But you need to do your footwork before the election. Get people who are really trustworthy, that the community will support. And the moment you're on the SGB, you're no longer representing an ethnic group or a race or a gender. Then we're all governors that we need to act in the best interest of the school. But we're not going to see diversity in our schools if we don't put an effort into it to also get sufficient representation on the governance structures. But then the parents must vote. And again, it's a democratic process. So we cannot dictate to parents, that's how you can vote. But let's put quality people there that people want to vote for them. And if you don't have a reflection that you feel will help the school, then you can co-opt to get more expertise or more diversity on your school. Don't be afraid to do that. Paul, I think we've covered all the questions now. So maybe the last part is again the contact details, and then a goodbye. Back to you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, there are the contact details of our provincial managers throughout all our provinces. Please get hold of them if you have got any queries at this stage. And Jeanne might differ with me. I think at this stage we only have in Mpumalanga that have got SGB regulations that have been promulgated. So we are waiting for the others to come through. I do know in KZN that they say they are coming through towards the end of this week. At the moment, there are guidelines out there. Just a quick one, beware that the guidelines are national guidelines. And once the regulations come, then we can start working on there. I might have said something wrong. That's why Jaco's come back.
And Paul, just two very good questions came through. A question on if there's a dispute between a principal and the rest of the SGB, on whose side, where does FEDSAS support? We're an SGB association. Remember, the principal is also a member of the school governing body. So we focus on the governance side, the governance management and leadership. So before you have a dispute, we'll mediate it. Let's work through it. So, and I think that's the crucial part. So when you get back to that circle again, on respect and to be trustworthy and to be open, that will be our point of departure. So please call us that we can assist in that regard. Then a very good question, a dispute at the CCMA, the chairperson has resigned or is no longer at the school, but he started the CCMA process. The best advice would be, yes, he can still continue to represent the school, but co-opt him on a governing body and co-opt him specifically just to finalize the CCMA process. He or she will be in the best position to conclude the matter at the CCMA. And there will be more of those that you cannot simply say that's the end of it. So yes, you can co-opt under those circumstances. That's it, Paul. Thank you from my side. Thank you for the school principals joining. Please use all the FEDSAS information that's available to help you to market. Use our social media tools, communicate with your school community, have your meetings, and we are really looking forward to get your feedback after that B section of part 1. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
You're muted, Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I was trying to mute the hottie-dos, but thank you, everybody. The recording will be available and details will come through to you within the next 24 hours so that you can share this information and use this information going forward. So thank you, everybody, and thanks for everybody's involvement. Sure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.